Greetings and welcome to an LGR printer thing. This is something I wanted to talk about for a long time now. This is a Star Micronics NX2420 Rainbow dot matrix printer. Yes, this was announced in 1990, fall of 1990, right before the Comdex show, and it was retailing at a cost of $549 on launch, or the equivalent of about $1,043 today, adjusted for inflation. Yikes. So yeah, despite that price, this was actually billed as one of their low-cost printers. Yeah, low cost. Right alongside the model NX2420 Multi-Font, which was $50 cheaper at $499. This was not one of the most expensive printers on the market, really. I mean, laser printers were still twice as much as this thing, but it still wasn't cheap. I just noticed, does that say Ponce? Well, despite the typos, this was actually meant for businesses, mostly small businesses, being that it wasn't like the very highest end, full letter quality things that you can get from a laser printer, but it was still, for a dot matrix, it was pretty awesome. So you've got that 24-pin print head, 250 characters per minute printing speed, 5 resident fonts or fonts built into the unit, a switchable push-pull tractor and friction paper feeds, and the headlining feature, color printing by way of a 30K print buffer to support the Epson LQ color emulation with 6 vibrant colors, or 7 vibrant colors, I guess, if you include black, magenta, cyan, violet, yellow, orange, and green. But yeah, this is a color dot matrix printer, as implied by the rainbow designation. It's certainly something I never saw back in the day, but then this was targeted at small businesses, like I said. Now, this was not the first color printer on the market, or even the first color dot matrix printer, not by a long shot. Now, one of the well-known early examples is the Apple ImageWriter 2 from 1985. That was a 9-pin color dot matrix. Back in the day, I had an Epson printer, or our family did, for our Packard Bell 486. That was a dot matrix printer that did monochrome, and it was 9 pins, so this is a step up in multiple ways. This is just gonna be a treat to open up. It's not exactly everything new old stock in here, but it's gonna be pretty darn close. I got this a while back in the box, and I've just been waiting to check it out, and this is the day, so let's get to it. First up here, we have one of the Newcoat BM256. This is one of the black ink ribbons. There's one reason that I picked this package up too, is it had several different ribbons that it came with. Wow, November 8th, 1992. Yeah, that definitely looks used. I believe there's a couple of new old stock ones in here, as well as an all-important color ribbon, which I hope works, because those have proven very hard to find for this particular model these days. All right, so we have a whole box of accessories here. Looks like the rear tray, probably, for the, friction feed in the back of the printer. Let's see, what is this? I got a overlay. It looks like just like a cheat sheet, quick reference overlay. Let's see, what is this? Okay, here we go. Yeah, one of the stars of the show here, well, assuming it works, the X24CL Star Micronics color ribbon. Ooh, so this is just absolutely fascinating to me. So you've got all the different colors there going on. I mean, really just like yellow, red, and blue. Of course, there's a black in there as well. I mean, it doesn't look entirely dry. I don't know, we will see. Never know with these old dot matrix ribbons. Ooh, what the heck? I didn't know this was with it. T-shirt ribbon, 831.91. What? So it is color as well, the same like yellow, red, blue, but it looks darker for sure. So let's see, custom t-shirts, heat transfer t-shirt ribbons. Huh. You probably spend a lot of money for that old computer, so why not put it to work earning a few dollars? Start a business selling custom t-shirts. What the crap? I had no idea this was in here. What? Okay, so you can just print Iron-on transfers to what? Paper? Special heat transfer ribbon. And it turns any kind of paper into like a t-shirt transfer. Gotta try it out for sure. And then lastly here we have the manual for both the multi-font and the Rainbow. They were effectively the same printer, like I said, except this one does color. It also had that extra bit of memory to be able to, work with the color and all that kind of stuff. Emulate that Epson LQ thing going on, and a couple other little improvements that were apparently worth 50 bucks. Okay, that's all the accessories. I guess the printer, well, no, there's still more crap. We've got another, this is kind of like a new old stock black ink, just sort of a non-branded thing. It's still in the plastic. Another black ink ribbon. There we go. Nice Centronics printer parallel cable right here. This goes into the back of the printer. This goes into the parallel port of your PC. Yet another black ink ribbon. Yet another black ink ribbon. This one's already kind of open, but well, yeah. So if anything, we'll be printing some black, that's for sure. Oh, it looks wonderful. Apparently it's a signature series. Don't entirely know what that means. I've actually had an NX2420 before. You may have seen it in some videos long ago. It was in way worse shape. It was yellow, this part was missing, and it never quite worked 100%. It certainly wasn't a signature series. Of course, it is just like a decal. But anyway, there's the printer itself, and I think that is a pretty smart looking unit. All these rounded edges, look, the sticker is all still perfect, and yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the design of this, and in a way I kind of don't, because I really like the older, chunkier, squared edges and sharp corners of like the Epson I had as a kid. But even that was a little bit rounded. Things were getting more rounded in terms of printers in the 90s. Yeah, so we've got a black ribbon already in place there. But yeah, look at that. This is one big reason that I wanted this, because it seriously looks new. Even all the foam is still in place. It's even in place on the bottom, so it really, it does not look used. I've got different tractor feeding kind of things right here. I've got some computer paper we're gonna use with this. I don't know why, but this is oddly exciting for just being an old dot matrix. So here's how you kind of use these cheat sheets. You just sort of overlay them on there, and depending on what you want to do, this will let you mess around with the electronic dip switches. So depending on the mode you're in, these turn into dip switches. And this is kind of interesting too. So you see this little cover right here? That is the space for cartridges of various expansions. So you can add more fonts, more RAM. Yeah, that's just one reason that I find dot matrix printers so interesting, is because output for different typefaces and all that, you have to rely on them in here. Like you can see draft modes and Times New Roman, Sans Serif, Courier, Prestige, Script. Those are the different built-in fonts. And then depending on your software, you can of course do all sorts of other things, with TrueType fonts and such in Windows 3.1, which we're going to try. But all of these built-in options, they're going to be, a different option depending on your needs and what kind of letter output you desire. So yeah, let's just go ahead and set it up and try it out. Yeah. So I've got the LGR Woodgrain 46 turned on and ready to go. Printer plugged into that. Really, we just need the printer turned on now, so. So that was the power on self-test there. The printer head is in position, but those few beeps, meaning that it is not ready to print. There is no paper inserted. So we will get some paper and have a couple different types we're going to be trying out here. And I've just got, first up, some plain sheets of like single, it's printer paper. Typical stuff, and that goes in the top of the printer. But one of my favorite things about using these styles of computer printers is using, some of this classic fan fold paper here. So it's all connected like this. and then you've got these tear off kind of edges and everything. So you can just tear off a sheet when you're done, and then you have these little bits on the side. I don't know, there's something amusing about this. Yeah, so this is giving a continuous feed of paper, and that'll go into the tractor feed area in the back of the printer there. First up though, just regular paper. So we've got a couple ways we can load paper into the top here. First we gotta have that clicked into place, so there's a bit of friction, and we'll just be loading in one sheet at a time, at least to start with. So yeah, that just sort of goes in between those two loose approximations of guides. And then once it's in like that, there's a couple ways that we can get it down into the printer. One is just manually feeding it with the platen knob here, kind of like a typewriter. Or if we want to, make sure it's in offline mode, and then we'll do that right there. And that automatically feeds it right up to the top margin, or the very top of the paper, really. So yeah, I'm gonna adjust that manually a little bit, but let's just have the printer do a very quick test though. So that'll involve having it cycling through the power, holding this online button on power on, and it'll do a short testing print. All right. So we got a nice Times New Roman test print with the, I think, the ROM version number, and then just running through different styles of, oh well, really intensities of what it can output in terms of text and the normal draft mode. But yeah, as for the computer side of things, there are no drivers to set up in DOS. It's just on LPT1 here. So for instance, we could open the DOS edit program and we can just type in anything we want to right here, and it'll do it. And that was that. Just one line, doesn't take very much. So one of the interesting things about these printers is, of course, the fonts, as I was mentioning. So if we switch this into offline mode, that means that it's not going to be able to receive anything from the computer itself, and we're just going to be dealing with the printer for the moment. But that allows us to switch between different fonts or typefaces here. So we have high-speed, draft, and then just draft. Times New Roman, Sans Serif, Courier, Prestige, and Script are our 5 different letter quality fonts. Supposedly letter quality. So let's just do Script here, for instance, and we're going to print out the same thing. Whoops, let's get it into online mode. And there we go, it printed out the same line in a Script font. Ooh! Put it offline, we can switch it over to Sans Serif font. There's that, or we can put it in Prestige. So yeah, that's how you adjust fonts if you're using a program like this that doesn't have the ability to, send like a what you see is what you get situation over to the printer, and it's just sending, like, this is just basic text. And so that's completely determined by the printer itself in this particular case. And something else you can have it do is if you just want to have it, say, print out something while you're doing something else, you can actually use the MS-DOS print command, which, I mean, that does a lot of things. But let's say if we have it print out autoexec.bat, and then we can just do something else while that's printing. And there we go. So it was just printing while we were doing other things in the system. So it sends everything that it wants to print over into the printer buffer. And let's just multitask. Ooh, how fancy. Fancy, fancy DOS. Now this is another thing that I've always found quite amusing. Like, say we have this that's on the screen at the moment. If you just press print screen, the actual print screen key on the keyboard, it'll print out the whole contents of the screen. So we literally just printed the screen there, and that is the original function of the print screen key. So yeah, not just for taking screenshots. I mean it is, but it's a physical screenshot on paper. So that's a thing I abused a little bit as a kid once I found that out. I think by accident. It's like, "Ooh, what does this key do?" And then my printer starts doing crap, and parents probably like, "What are you doing?" But that's what that is. But wait, there's more. If you actually hold down the control key and press print screen, that enables the print screen echo mode. So now anytime you type in something, it's going to type out the contents of that right there on the paper as you go through and do things on the computer. So and there you go. It'll just keep on doing that as long as you have that echo mode enabled, unless the paper runs out. But so let's get to some Windows 3.1 stuff because I really want to. Now, while DOS does not need any kind of drivers, you will need something for Windows 3.1. And while it comes with a ton of printer drivers, it doesn't come with one specifically for the NX 2420, which means you're going to be a bit limited in terms of features and setting things up, and it'll only be a monochrome. And you could choose one of the compatible printers like the Epson LQ860, which is actually what the 2420 here emulates. It's not going to be fully featured. So I actually was able to go onto the Star website, and yes, they are still around, and they do keep all their old drivers and software for like all their printers pretty much on their website. So I downloaded those, put them on a disk, and got to installing them here on Windows 3.1. And once that extracted everything you need to, I was able to go into the Windows printer setup and choose that as a new printer. And I got the drivers going and gave us a nice control panel for the 2420 specifically, like resolution and feeder settings and margins and the all-important color mode. Yes, you can enable and disable color and amount of ink you're using, all that kind of stuff from within this control panel. So you really do want a driver preferably for this. The later versions of the 2420 would have come with driver discs, but seeing as mine is an earlier release, as far as I can tell, it didn't. It doesn't even mention Windows in the manual. But now that it's all set up, we can open something like Paintbrush and do one of my favorite things, which is just, paint with a brush. I don't want to print this out, actually. I don't want to do that at all. But like, for instance, I've always liked this imagery here from Windows 3, the chess fang, and we can just print that out. Let's see, we'll do a draft and the whole window, and that's fine. And it's gonna send it over. It's into the printer buffer. All right. Well, that took a bit of time, but that particular feeling that it makes, I don't know, there's a fascinating texture there. But yeah, check it out. We've got a nice monochrome image, and yes, monochrome, because I was printing in just the default settings, which it defaults to monochrome, and I only have black ink ribbon installed right now. But yeah, check it out. I mean, that wasn't even the highest quality at all. Okay, so we've seen how it prints on single sheets of paper in monochrome, but before we get to the color, let's actually try it out on that tractor feed. And I have not printed a banner in Print Shop Deluxe on that kind of paper in 25, 26 years. Been a long time. So I'm itching to try it again. There's obviously a bit more setup involved here, as you might expect. But the idea is that you do this, once and leave it set up this way, and you have a more convenient paper loading mechanism since there's no like tray loader for multiple single sheets. I need that in position and this tilted down. The whole idea is we're just going to have these little tractor feeders in the right spot. You can slide these around to adjust to your paper size. Get that side first. And there we go. The paper will come out a continuous feed until you tear it off wherever you need to. So, all right, let's get it turned on. There we go. We're ready to print some banners. So the Print Shop Deluxe is the only choice and application for this as far as I'm concerned. Lots of happy memories making banners that are way too long and for absolutely no reason except that it was kind of fun for whatever. Yeah, so just looking at these backdrops brings back an instant mass of memories. I swear, my family and friends, we use pretty much like every single one of these for birthdays and events and church gatherings and who knows what else. For some reason, these elephants are speaking to me. We are going to use these. Oh yeah. So we've got a single image. I guess this is a text box. Yes. So we can just put in, I don't know, something here. And oh yeah, these classic effects. We'll do something a little bit lighter because I'm not wanting to have this take absolutely forever. We'll see if this is too long of a banner. Yeah, I'm gonna fix it to 3 pages. So there's a few other things we'll need to switch around here. For one thing, we're working with grayscale, and we don't need cut sheet banner printing because we're not cutting sheets. We've got this continuous tractor feed of all sorts of paper coming through. If we had individual sheets, perhaps we might want to, well, you know, we would want that option, but we don't right here. I'm going to the printer setup as well to make sure everything's good. No color, course, default margins because we don't want any spaces in between the pages. Looks pretty good. All right, so we'll start the process of transferring everything in terms of images and all that over to the printer. And here we go. Yeah, all right. I don't want to tear it too hard. There we go. We got a banner here. The draft and dithering settings made it look a little crappier than it could have, and I'm not entirely sure what happened to the tops of these letters here. That sort of got cut off with white. Here, though, it looks like it actually found a spot in the ink ribbon where I'm assuming this is probably the section of the ink that had just been sitting there so long it got dry and it looped back around and there was no ink there anymore really, but you know, so it goes. Man, and I had forgotten the smell of, yeah, like a printer head doing its thing. I mean, yeah, that is really hot. There's a particular smell that comes along with this. It's not just the sound and the feel of the paper and everything. There's so many things going on with the senses when you print out stuff on old machinery like this. Like everything is getting all warm, like the electronics, and I don't know. Well, I printed a banner. That's one of my biggest wants, my biggest desires for this video fulfilled. So I'm gonna put it back to the single sheet paper mode and let's try out some of that different ink that I have. As far as I could tell from the documentation, all you need to do is just set it up like normal. It's a much wider ribbon than the black ink is. But I think all we need to do, again, this is not in the manual, so I'm kind of just guessing here, not here. Print Manager, we'll go into the printer setup and set this to color. We'll see if that does it. Because yeah, the only thing it mentions in the manual as far as doing color is using these switches, putting it into a different mode, and then changing between the individual 6 colors that it can do, and then just doing like a straight color for your text that you're printing, which is not exactly what I'm looking for here. But all right, let's see. Let's just see. I don't know. Let's just try something. Yeah, this little thing. Okay, well, it tried. There's definitely no color there, but I could see what it was trying to do in terms of moving the whole ink ribbon cartridge up and down up against the actual print head. Yeah, unfortunately this little guy is no longer pulling the ribbon back in. There's bits of gunk coming out as I pull the ribbon the other way here, and it does make this still move, but they've just started deteriorating inside of this thing, and it's like the roll is just gross now. We'll see what I can do. Well, don't know if it's supposed to work like this, but I was able to pop off this lid here. And you can start to see where the problem is. There's these very delicate foam wheels that kind of hold it in place and go up against these little pinch rollers there, and they're not doing their thing anymore. And it's just, they've deteriorated to the point where, look at that, they're all gone. They're supposed to look more like this, and now it just looks like that. It's kind of neat to see how it bunches up inside there, though. It kind of reminds me of like a tape loop for doing like reverb, echoey effects with audio. But and just out of curiosity, I did open one of the black ones as well, and you can see they used a completely different type of mechanism here. So it's all plastic and gears and stuff, no foam whatsoever. It's still a beautiful mess here in terms of the actual ribbon being bunched up like that. That's just really cool. And you can see it kind of turns around there at one point, and yeah, anyway, this is a well-used ribbon, so I don't really care. But yeah, this whole foam wheels situation is just not, I mean, look at this one. This one's even absolutely, yeah, it's no good. Absolutely no good. Ah, man. All hope is not lost for getting this to print in color, though. After all, remember we have that t-shirt ink ribbon, which, you know, it looked a little darker in terms of this right here, but it does at least turn when I move the knob. Make sure there's no special settings in terms of the print head position. Well, it does say use it to make it further away from the paper. So it was at like a 3. Let's move it to like a, I don't know, 5. Okay, it loaded in there. Of course, so did the other one, but yeah, no. Let's try the same little image. Hey, so that's a little better. That is indeed a color image. I mean, not a particularly great one, but there it is. That's our color dot matrix print. And granted, being that it is using this t-shirt ink, which looked a little darker, maybe it's actually just showing up a little darker, but I mean, let's just go for it. Let's just try out chess. And let's see, I have some slightly higher weight paper here somewhere. Yeah, just a little bit thicker. We'll see if this works any better. Well, we're going to put it out of its miseries because it really doesn't appear to have enough ink to do this. In fact, it got that little bit done and yeah, it just kind of gave up. I see what the problem is. It straight up tore a hole in it. And yeah, this is barely turning anymore. So, seems that these color cartridges suffer from the same problem. Wow. Alright, so my curiosity is killing me. I've got to see whether or not that transfer ink transfers anything. So I've just got a white cotton blend t-shirt here and a blank sleeve. We'll see. I don't even know. Let's just do it. Because yeah, I mean, considering how old this ink was and it looked kind of dry, and you know what? Oh my goodness. Whoa! Well, that transferred about as well as you can hope, considering there's a little spot there where it actually matches the slight creasing in the paper where the ink got a little, I don't know, it just bunches up on thinner paper like this. I should have used thicker paper in retrospect, but yeah, Look at that. It went straight onto the sleeve. In fact, it kind of went through. Oh. Well, I suppose that's it for this journey with the Star NX 2420 Rainbow. Didn't go exactly as I'd planned, and that color ink is a bit of a downer, but you know, I do have other plans for not only this printer, but other dot matrix printers that I have that can do color, and maybe I'll be able to track down an actual working color ink ribbon for this one. But you know, whatever, at least I got to make a banner. I haven't made one of these in absolutely forever. And I mean, if anything, we got some cool imagery printed out, and we got the one color image, a color dot matrix printer image. So yeah, good times. And that's about it for this video about the Star NX 2420. Lovely little machine. And if you enjoyed this lovely little video, well, I don't even know if it's lovely or little at this point, but if you enjoyed the video, then cool. I like covering stuff like this here in LGR. There are new videos every single week, not usually about printers, but sometimes I get the urge. Either way, subscribe if you like this type of thing, and as always, thank you very much for watching LGR.